Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. Today, I am doing all of your questions answered. So I am looking at my phone right now because I put up a question box for you yesterday. And honestly, I haven't even read over them. So I think we should just get right into it. And, I really want to make sure that I am giving you everything I possibly can and helping educate you on all the topics that you are truly interested in. And how else to do that than every now and then, once a month, to do a Q&A just like this, to where I answer your questions of what you're longing to know, right? So here we go. Let's see. Okay, I like this one. Here we go. First question is, what is the first step to regulate your nervous system? Where does one start after years of burnout? I actually get this question a lot, and you've probably heard me say this at one point or another in the podcast, in some episode or another. But, I will oftentimes be on a podcast where they say, give us the best tips or tricks, or what are the number one tool. That's the hard part with the reality of what we do, which is extremely difficult to explain to individuals, is I can't give you that first step, because that first step may look different for you versus me, because my brain may be different from yours versus your partner's versus your children's. Now, what I can say is, if you recognize that you are in burnout and you are longing to regulate, and you don't want to spend the money on our Thrive course, or you don't want to spend the money on one-on-ones, we have on-demand courses that can help walk you through this. It does give you a generalized amount of information, but I do the best that I can to be able to help you in terms of each individual brain. But going back to that question, what are the first steps to regulate your nervous system? I would say, if I had to give you an answer, the first steps to regulating your nervous system are actually understanding your brain, the type of brain you have, and what that means in terms of your behaviors, how you tick, how you're showing up in the world, and the struggles that you are having based on your individual nervous system and your brain. The other thing I want to mention is, so often we hear the nervous system, nervous system, nervous system, nervous system. And truly, when I first started doing this, no one was talking about the nervous system. And I felt like if I had started out with a bang and talking about that all over my pages, it would have been like trying to teach French, right? And so I started with words like overwhelm, burnout, exhaustion, depletion. Now everyone understands, I feel dysregulated, right? But there is a difference between someone saying, I can reset your nervous system. No one can reset your nervous system. They can help support your nervous system. They can teach you about your nervous system, and you can shift the patterns within your brain, but no one can help reset your nervous system. And all those reels that are like, I can do that in 2 seconds or 2 minutes, or just tap, or put your face in an ice water bath. That's all bullshit. It's a way for you to go to their page and follow them, right? Or it's a marketing scheme or a sales pitch. Now, what we do is actually deeper than just the nervous system. What we do is the sensory system, right? So you can understand or gain knowledge on what the nervous system is, but are those individuals teaching you about your sensory system, right? We have a sensory system, and that is where we are processing information. It comes into our brain, right? Through all of our senses, right? Then our brain processes Then our brain processes it, and then it spits out a response, which is your behavior, which is the true language of your brain. Your language of your brain is not your words, okay? And if you are truly longing to learn how to regulate your nervous system, then it must include the sensory system. And most individuals out there who are like, I'm the nervous system reset guru or expert or all the different things, if they're not talking about the sensory system, then they honestly don't know what they're doing. I also have my doctorate in this, and I've been doing doing this for over a decade. And most of those individuals who are pushing this nervous system stuff are just simply coaches. They've read books. They may have taken courses such as mine, and then they brand themselves as nervous system experts. To understand the brain means you've taken courses in neurology. You have taken courses in the sensory system. You understand the patterns of the sensory system, the nervous system, and how the brain relates to all of those. You understand the sensory profile assessment, which is a standardized assessment that only individuals who have a license in occupational therapy can give you and score. And most people do not do the adult one. Most people use it for kids. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really know anyone using the adult version until I came around and was like, we're going to use this. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the perfect this and that I'm the only one and I'm the guru. I'm not saying that. I just couldn't find many people doing this, if any. And so I knew that meant that there was a need. And so that's why I went and pursued this, so that you can understand your brain, so that you can understand not just your nervous system, but your sensory system. Let's do another one that's kind of similar. Okay. It says, I feel so stuck in fight or flight, so angry all the time. Quick tips to help in the moment. If you do this work, if you choose to do this work, you will have the quick tips because you will understand what to do with your own brain. But if I don't know who you are in terms of how your brain functions, and I don't know your sensory system, and I don't know your nervous system, and I don't have your sensory profile in front of me, for me to give you quick tips would be like me saying, well, just go box breathe. Or how about you journal? And then maybe you won't be so angry. Or like, again, stick your face in a bucket of ice, right? Like I could give you quote, quick tips. But in my personal opinion, quick tips are a dime a dozen and self-help books are a dime a dozen. But that just adds more to your plate. That just adds more time and exhaustion and trying to take them from the back of your head and pull them out and then utilize those tools in real time when it's just something prescribed rather than it being what naturally should happen for your individual brain, right? So something that let's use this example for me. Like if I felt stuck and I was in fight or flight and I felt so angry all of the time, the quick tip that I would give myself of what to do may be completely different than the quick tip I give you because my brain may be different than yours. So something that I would do if I was feeling that is I would tell my children and I would say, Mommy's on red. I feel really frustrated and angry. And then I would say, it has nothing to do with you. I am just not doing well today. Mommy's going to go take a 5-minute break in her room. I would lay down flat because laying flat is very regulating. I would stare at the wall. I would not scroll my phone and I would just breathe and just honestly reset. And truly the gift of me knowing that I have autonomy and that I have the worthiness to gift that to myself is truly half the battle, because I feel that there are so many of you who feel so guilty and there's so many of you who are overcompensating. You're like, oh my gosh, I suck at this. Oh my gosh, I suck at that. Oh my gosh, I hate being, present and hanging on the floor and playing Legos with my kids. Like I can't stand doing this or that. Well, if you can't stand doing it, but you're pushing yourself to do it because you feel like an inadequate parent if you don't, you are going to burn out. You are going to feel dysregulated. You are going to get into that fight or flight state and you are going to have anger. But if you recognize what you truly do love, gosh, I love reading books with my kids at night, but my partner, they'll play Legos all day long on the floor. Great. Let your partner be the Lego person right? Like I find that we are ripping ourselves to shreds and feeling so guilty for where we think we should be as parents or what we think we should do. So we're doing the thing, even though we don't like the thing, but then on top of that, we're doing the thing that we do love. And then we're getting completely dysregulated. And yes, when you are dysregulated or you are in fight or flight, you are going to see that anger because you're snappy, you're frustrated, you're irritable. It's almost like you have PMS, and you may even have PMS in those moments, right? But like, it doesn't have to be that way if you finally step into what does work for me. Okay, what do I love and dislike as a parent? What does fill me up as a parent, and what do I want to take off my plate? Am I worthy enough to know that I'm a great parent, even though I don't love laying on the floor and playing Legos with my kids? There is so much underneath, not just that sensory system, right? That is why we focus on sensory regulation as well as emotional regulation, because regulating those emotions is so crucial, but it's also part of the patterning of what you've built in your brain or that you've seen modeled to yourself, or the belief systems that have been built in your home as you were growing up as a child, right? And then you bring those into your family life, and you can just completely rip yourself to shreds thinking that you're not enough, you're not doing enough, and it's debilitating. It is absolutely debilitating. So I can't give you quick tips and tricks. I did give you an example what I would do, but I know that that works for my nervous system, right? I don't have time to like read words of affirmation. Personally, I think that's like toxic positivity. I don't have time to journal. I hate journaling. I hate writing. Like I'd rather say it out loud. It's faster. It's easier. It's to the point. Like, but yes, pen to paper, like that gives feedback in your brain. That's beautiful. But some people might love it. I don't like it, right? Meditating for me, don't have the energy, time, or patience for it. Some people might love it. There's so many different ways of doing things, but we have to figure out what works for you. Okay, you asked, you shall receive. Wasn't expecting this question, but why aren't you mentioned in any obituary I've seen of your husband? So for those of you who know my whole story, Jonathan and I were separated and in the midst of a divorce when he passed away. Decided to hand me divorce papers, which I have explained and talked about. I was drowning taking care of him, and I finally decided that I needed to take care of myself and get support for myself. And I knew that that would require him to either step up and start taking care of himself and do the work, or that it would get worse. And this isn't something that just like happened overnight. Jonathan was struggling for the entire course of our marriage. I don't know why I wasn't mentioned in the obituary. At that time, his family did everything. They really fought me on even getting Jonathan's belongings, which were the children's belongings. I chose not to go to the funeral because I was advised by Jonathan's stepmom that it would not be a healthy place for me to go, and it would not be a healthy place for the kids to be. And I felt like the children had never been to a funeral before. So to go to a funeral for the first time, and it's their dad's, and they're super young, and their dad tragically dies, and they don't know that that's how their dad died yet, I felt would be very, very traumatizing for the boys. And so I made the hard decision that the best thing for them in that moment was to stay here and to not go. And I still stand by that decision. I think it was the right decision. I really struggled with that decision because I didn't know if I would regret it later. But just because you don't go to a funeral doesn't mean you don't love someone, you don't care about someone, or you don't miss someone. I think that to answer your question directly, the reason that I was not in the obituary was because I was blamed, and I had to do a lot of work around that, because, when something tragic like this happens and someone takes their own life, there are so many different emotions and so many different directions that the easiest thing to do, and honestly the natural, in my opinion, thing to do, is to blame someone. And I was blamed. But I also know that I took care of Jonathan for 10 years, 12 years. And I truly feel that I did everything I could. And if I could have done something else to keep him alive, I would have. During the time that we were separated, his mother has shared with me that his mom and sister were really keeping him alive, which I did not know. And that he had attempted multiple times through that period, which I did not know until years later. But I endured, and I've talked about this before, but I've endured a lot where I've had to show up for myself, move through the pain, and say, no, like I am not going to be spoken to like that. I'm not going to be treated like that. And I know my truth. And my truth is that I absolutely did everything I could for Jonathan. And I think there's proof of that because he struggled our entire marriage, but he was still alive the whole time we were together. So yeah, heavy question, but nosy question, but I'm an open book. So I think that it was just a dig, to be honest. When Jonathan died, we were still married, and I was the only love Jonathan ever had, only love he will ever have. And so that was his family's choice, but a piece of paper does not define my relationship with Jonathan. And again, that was their choice. Let's see what else. Can you fight anxiety without meds? You can, 1000%. I think if you understand how to regulate your nervous system and support your sensory system, you can. However, medication is a personal choice. I am not for or against medication. I think that you need to decide individually, but I also think you need to decide with the best doctors you can possibly find, because they will hand them out like candy these days. And if they're like, I'm still feeling it, it's not working, or I'm still this, or I'm still that, they'll just add on more. If there's a honeymoon phase through any type of medication, that means that it's the wrong medication. If the medication works, you should feel it immediately and it should continue to work. There should not be a honeymoon phase. I can answer this one quickly. I'm in Austin and looking for a therapist. Are you offering private sessions to new clients? Yes, we are offering private sessions to new clients. I would maybe say I have one. Maybe I have one spot available, and that's like squeezing you in. But Brittany, Maria, and Carter all have availability on their schedule. And let me just say for a second that they have all been trained over the course of years. I am so particular and I care so much about your trust that I would absolutely never, ever have someone on our team if I did not feel you were going to get the same exact result working with one of them as you would with me, because I am making you a promise. And at the end of the day, it's my company that we all work under, and I need to be able to sleep at night and know that you are in the best of hands. And what I can tell you is that you are. Brittany, Maria, and Carter know what they're doing, and they are phenomenal, phenomenal humans. And if you have built trust with me, even based on this podcast or my page, then trust me when I say that you are in good hands with them. I just can't physically do it all, right? I can't do the reels and the podcasts and seeing clients and thrive, and I don't have enough hours in the day. That's a good one. How to get past resentment towards husband for 15 years of his alcoholism. He's 6 months sober. Well, 15 years versus 6 months is a big difference, okay? So let's take it one day at a time and let's go day by day. You know, my grief process, I've been in the midst of grief for 4 years, and every year has brought something new, and every month has brought something new. And sometimes they're different than others or harder than others. And so this is a grief, and releasing that resentment and anger will take time. It doesn't go away overnight. And so, yes, everyone probably hates that saying time heals all wounds, but you've got to give it some time. The same way that you aren't going to be able to regulate your nervous system overnight, and we tell our clients that, you're not going to be able to release this resentment of 15 years overnight in 6 months, right? And I would imagine that you're still in that place of walking on eggshells of, okay, we've made it 6 months, but is this going to last years? Because what your brain knows is that you've got 15 years of a track record versus 6 months. So just breathe, be patient, take care of yourself, support yourself, get some support, truly, truly get some support for yourself, and take it one day at a time. Love this one. And we may end on this one because I do have another meeting right now. How do you get your spouse to put in the work to support the kids? He refuses therapy. You know, I could go on a soapbox. Let's just go there for a second, and I may get a little heated, but let's first talk about, and we're talking heteronormative here, male brains. So women are more emotional. The part of our brain that's larger, I'm sure you've heard me say that before, is the emotion part of our brain. Men have a larger part of the brain that is the logic part of their brain, which is black and white. So either it's a yes or a no for them. Now, not only on top of the yes or a no, they have been taught and fed these social norms that they must stay strong and be the provider and protect and defend and be masculine and all the different things. So when you say, hey, can you go to therapy? What dings in their head is, that's going to be a fuck no, because that means that I've failed. That's going to be a fuck no, because that means that I'm broken. And as a male, for me to admit that I am broken or failing is the the absolute ultimate defeat in my life. Now, just because you ask them to go to therapy does not mean that they have failed or that they are broken. But that is what their brain is telling them because of that black and white brain and because of societal norms and because of the agenda that's been pushed on them and the expectations and how men are seen and what they should do and how they should act, right? I cannot tell you how many messages I get on a daily basis of like, gosh, I wish my husband or partner would do this work. Gosh, I wish they would do this work. Gosh, I wish they would do this work. I can lead a horse to water, right? I led Jonathan to that water for over a decade, but the horse has to decide to drink it. Same way if you have a spouse who's an alcoholic or you know someone with an eating disorder, right? Like until they decide that they're ready for change, there is basically, you're going to bang your head up against the wall, right? So my biggest piece of advice to you is you get the support. You get the help. If they're like, are you crazy? We're not spending that. Well, we're not going to spend it on you. Like you're not going to do the work. Someone needs to do it. So I'm doing this. And it's so heartbreaking when we talk to individuals who are like, this is a yes. I want to do this work. I'm all in. I can't wait. And then they're like, but I have to talk to my partner. And they know deep down that their partner's going to say, are you crazy? That doesn't always happen. Sometimes they're like, my partner's a definite yes. They're all in, like they want this from me. But sometimes it's the partner that stops them because we feel like as women, that emotion brain, we do need the validation. We do need the emotional support of our partner to say, you are so worthy of doing this for yourself. So if your partner won't do it, all the more reason for you to do it. And I promise you, I cannot say this enough. There's so much shifting and changes that happen with your partnership, even if the partner chooses not to do this work. And over and over and over and over and over, we see that with our clients. And they tell us that over and over and over, like, I see such a big change in my partner, even though they have not done any of this work. They have not watched a module or they have not done a session or they haven't done anything. So just trust that and know that it's okay for you to gain the support, even if your partner is unwilling. I'll finish with this one and then I really, really have to go. What stage of life are you in? I am in a really happy stage of life. I am in a peaceful stage of life. It has taken many, many years to get here. The work never ends. I'm always continuing to revise and grow and do work on myself because I think that's what life is about. But I was even, standing at the kitchen sink the other day thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I think this is the happiest I've ever been as a parent because parenting solo when my children were younger was a bitch. Like, I don't really know what else to say. I was also dealing with two children who were moving through grief and me, right? And my own body dealing with grief. Also having such big aspirations and dreams for this business and going after that at the same time. And it was a lot. It was a lot. But I finally feel like I can exhale and know that no matter what, things are going to be okay. And in the thick of it, year 1, year 2, year 3, I didn't have enough miles under the tires to trust that things were going to be okay. And now I've been through enough life that I know I can weather any storm. And the stage of life that I'm in is, I would say, happiness. And just FYI, my life is not perfect at all, but I feel the good and it feels so good to be in the good. So that's all I've got time for today, but I'll see you next time and I'll save these questions and I will answer more next time.